Some games are terrible and they flop, but some games are brilliant, thoughtful, innovative, and they still fail. Whether it's bad timing, poor marketing, or just being too ahead of the time, these masterpieces never got the love they deserved. We all know about the biggest titles. You know, the ones that made millions and left a massive cultural impact. But there are others, hidden gems, that flew under the radar. These games had the potential to change the landscape of gaming. They had it all, and yet they still flopped. So today, we're gonna take a little closer look at 5 brilliant games that didn't get their time to shine. And some of them were overshadowed by bigger titles. Others just didn't have the right marketing push, and a few, well, they might have been a little too early for their time. And let's start with Titanfall 2. One of the most devastating examples of a masterpiece that never got the recognition it deserved. Released in 2016 by Respawn Entertainment, Titanfall 2 was everything you can ask for in a first-person shooter. It was fast-paced, fluid movement system, it made jumping, sliding and wall running a joy, and it was, for all intent and purposes, the game to beat in multiplayer. But the game didn't just shine in multiplayer, it also offered a brilliant single-player campaign, something the original Titanfall lacked.
Protocol 3. Protect the pilot.
The campaign was a breath of fresh air in a genre filled with repetitive, uninspired stories back then. The writing was sharp and the bond you formed with your Titan BT felt genuine. The action was exciting, but it was also emotional at times. It was smart and fun and expertly designed. But despite being one of the best FPS campaigns in years, Titanfall 2 was crushed under the weight of 2 other massive releases, Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Both of these games launched around the same time. Titanfall 2 got stuck in the middle. EA, the publisher, made a huge mistake by releasing Titanfall 2 between those two giants, and the result, it never had a chance to reach the mass audience it deserved. And it's so sad. Even though it's now considered a cult classic, it was too late for most gamers. And the damage was done, and the player base never fully returned. So to this day, it remains one of the most tragic examples of timing in gaming history.
You didn't actually think we'd just let you walk in here, did you?
We've been set up.
Welcome to hell, Walker.
Next up is Spec Ops The Line, a game that was marketed as just another generic military shooter, but beneath that surface it was one of the most thoughtful, daring and submersive games of the past decade. When Spec Ops The Line was first revealed, many gamers thought it would just be another Call of Duty clone, but what it turned out to be was something much deeper, something much darker. At its core, Spec Ops The Line was a psychological deconstruction of modern military shooters. It challenged the player's perception of morality and war, confronting them with responsibility. The game takes place in Dubai, a city ravaged by a massive sandstorm, and it follows a squad of soldiers trying to locate a missing American officer. What starts as a simple rescue mission turns into a haunting exploration of war and the toll it takes on those involved. The story escalates into a harrowing journey, forcing you to make impossible choices that have real horrifying consequences. The game was trying to make a statement, and it succeeded, but most players never got past the first few levels. Why? Well, because it was marketed as just another shooter. The expectations were wrong, and so many players turned it off way too early to see the brilliancy that lay beneath the surface. The game's narrative is masterful, but most players didn't get to experience it. And the result, Spec Ops The Line remains one of the most underrated games of all time.
I thought my duty was to protect this city from the storm. I was wrong. I have to protect it from you.
Let's talk about Prey 2017. Not the Prey from 2006, but the reboot developed by Arcane Studio. The 2017 Prey was a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling and level design. It combined the best elements of System Shock, Bioshock and Half-Life into one immersive experience, but the game was misbranded. When Prey was first revealed, it was marketed as a first-person shooter with some survival horror elements. The problem was, it was way more than that. Prey wasn't about fighting endless waves of enemies, it was about exploration, puzzle solving and unraveling the mystery of space station Talos 1. The game is set in a dystopian future where you play Morgan Yu, a scientist aboard a space station filled with strange alien creatures called Typhon. The game allows you to explore Talon 1 at your own pace, experimenting with different powers, upgrades and weapons. There's an incredible level of freedom in how you approach the game, and it's all wrapped up in brilliant narrative that unfolds as you make choices and uncover secrets. But the game was misbranded. Many fans of Prey 2006 expected a traditional first-person shooter, and they were disappointed when they didn't get one. Additionally, it had little marketing support and was overshadowed by bigger, more well-known franchises. Despite its brilliance, Prey flopped commercially. Now let's take a look at Enslaved Odyssey to the West.
Trip enslaved me. And if I don't do what she says, she causes me a lot of pain. And if I still don't do what she says, she kills me.
All right. It's just I always sort of fancied my chances myself with Trip, you know. But if there's something already between you, I'd respect that. I'm not the kind of guy to go muscling in.
Easy. She can hear every word we say.
Another game that was critically acclaimed but commercially unsuccessful. Developed by Ninja Theory and published by Namco Bandai. Enslaved took players on a journey through a post-apocalyptic world inspired by the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West. The game was a unique blend of action, platforming and storytelling with a focus on the relationship between the two main characters, Monkey and Trip. The game had a fantastic world building, memorable characters and an emotional story that drew players in. But despite all of that, it barely made a dent at the box office. Part of the problem was its release window. It came out in 2010, when the market was flooded with other big releases, and it just couldn't stand out. Enslaved also had a somewhat confusing marketing campaign, and many gamers weren't sure what kind of game they were getting into. But if you gave it a chance, it was an unforgettable experience. It had some of the best characters development and writing you'll find in any action game, but because of its poor sales, it didn't get the recognition it deserved.
So how'd it work out for you?
Let's go. Got more stuff to get.
Finally, we have The Evil Within 2. The first Evil Within was a cult hit, but the second game improved on nearly every aspect. The environments were larger, the story was more engaging, and the horror was genuinely terrifying. But even though it was a better game, it still didn't get the attention it deserved. Because this game was overshadowed by other horror releases and had a little marketing behind it. It was released in the midst of an already packed year of gaming, and it seems like fans just weren't ready for a slower-paced, narrative-driven survival horror game. So, The Evil Within 2 took players through a twisted, haunted town filled with monsters and psychological horrors. It had a genuinely engaging story with tight gameplay mechanics and a beautiful, nightmarish atmosphere. But despite these improvements, it struggled to build a large following. It was one of those games that fell through the cracks, and that's a real shame, because it was a masterpiece, really. So, why do these games flop? Because quality isn't always enough. Sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's about the buzz surrounding a release, and sometimes it's just plain bad luck. But here's the thing, even though these games didn't succeed commercially, they are still brilliant. They still have a lasting impact on those who played it. And they're still here, so we can still play them. And sometimes that's enough. So, what games do you think deserve better? Let me know in the comments and I'm gonna read them out because, as you know, I want to hear your take on it. If you enjoyed this little breakdown, don't forget to like this video and leave a little comment because that would really help me grow my little channel here. And I thank you all for the support and I hope you all are gonna have a really good day and I see you the next time. Alright? Take care everybody.
When linked to a Titan, a pilot can only be stopped by overwhelming force, or an equal. The frontier has been the only home I've ever known. For years, our lands have been destroyed by the IMC, forcefully taking our resources, polluting and destroying our planets, and killing us off if we try to resist. Despite recent victories at Demeter and beyond, we have a long way to go before the IMC is defeated. Now, I serve as a rifleman in the militia, fighting to free the frontier. I'm a long way from becoming a pilot. But when that day comes, I hope I can live up to the honor.